to another episode of our Facebook Live series. I'm super pumped because I've been wanting to get Josh Scott on here for a while. And if you guys don't know who Studio 88 is, they're the geniuses behind my personal website. They have created amazing websites for many of the heavy hitters in our industry and many of the startups in this group. And I can't wait to talk about how we were first introduced by our mutual friend Michael. But before we got on, I just wanted to ask Josh, what he's drinking.
I knew any podcast or live with you, we could definitely have something to drink, especially because I'm sure we're going to be talking about Napa and the making of retreat. So I was like, we have to, right? Like it would be
Yeah.
wrong to not
Yes.
have wine. So
And okay, but also, will you please let everyone know that you're pursuing something, a passion of yours?
oh yeah, I next week I start level 3 certification, sommelier certification. So the first two were like they were all right. This third one, I got the prospectus, and I mean it's got me worried. I mean, I've got like a whole thing of flashcards, and it's going to be a little insane. They want you to taste through at least 100 wines in the next 8 weeks. So um, it'll be
Gosh,
so
that
eight
sounds
weeks.
awful.
I know it is. It's somebody's got to do it. It's 8 weeks, 7 days. That's 56 days. So it's like 2 bottles a day. I don't know that I'll get that many,
Wait, two
but
bottles a day. Two,
they want
two.
you, yeah, they want you to taste like 100 wines in the next 8 weeks. So we'll see. But it's
Challenge
crazy stuff.
accepted.
Like this is a Chateauneuf de Pape from France, which is like Grenache. So like you learn all these like fun French wines to say, and but like France and Italy, man, they're intimidating. Like trying to learn all that stuff. Like I feel like I had California pretty locked down. Like I'm good at that, but France and Italy is a whole nother world.
Okay, so what are you drinking right now?
So it's this French. It's called Chateauneuf de Pape, and the brand is Domaine du Vieux Telegraphe. So it's a Grenache based wine, which kind of has like a strawberry, cherry, like red fruit, but also like very tannic. It's yeah, very warm climate, so big alcohol. Like it's a big wine. It's fun.
Oh my gosh. So how does that compare to, because I know that Joanna, your beautiful wife, I know she loves big Napa Reds.
Yeah.
How does this compare to the big Napa Reds?
So it's different. I mean, this is probably it's gonna be close to it. Like if you're a big California Cabernet drinker, you're gonna like this. I mean, it's like strawberry Danish, kind of like on the nose with like some vanilla icing and some cedar in there. So it's a big wine for France, one of the big ones, which is why a lot of people like those. But what are you drinking? A Cabernet?
I am drinking a red.
Nice. Good.
No, I'm actually drinking a. Brian's gonna kill me for massacring this. We're wine club members. One of our favorite wineries in Napa is Etude, and he
Yeah.
opened a bottle last night. I didn't look at it, but I think it's a Pinot. No, no, it's
Okay.
too dark. I have no idea. A
Yeah.
cab?
So it looks too dark, but it might be.
It might be, but
Yeah.
yeah. If you come to Napa, we definitely want to bring you to Etude. It's gorgeous. Well, we just want you to come to Napa. Any excuse to
I
drink in
know.
person is, I mean, it's always
I
fun.
know. Well, and we're so excited this November, and honestly, you stepping out and doing this first making of retreat, it's going to be amazing. We've had conversations behind the scene of just your vision and everything you've got planned and the experiences, and it's literally going to be like your tagline for the practice is dentistry different, or however, is that right? Dentistry, comma
Dentistry differently, yes.
dentistry differently. This is like CE, comma differently. So I think like everything you do is kind of like that. I mean, it's really going to be a different type of experiential event. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. And I just wanted to thank you and Joanna and Studio 88 for being our official sponsors for this event. You guys are pulling out all the stops. We have a whole, like, you're bringing a whole crew, a
Yeah.
whole videography crew, like, and if you guys have worked with Studio 88, they do not disappoint. Like any kind of camera equipment and microphones, the whole nine, lighting, it's going to be insane, and I can't wait to actually just hug you guys in person. But I know that we have a lot to talk about today, and one of the most important things I think is why a startup, and how are you going to differentiate yourself from all the other dental practices around you. And I get, so when we were first introduced by Michael, you guys are based out of the Midwest,
Yeah.
and I had never heard of Studio 88. This was back in 2008, 2017.
Okay.
I was really trying to watch my cash flow. So
Yeah.
I had planned on creating my website by myself. I spent I spent like what, 2.5 weeks on YouTube trying to code my WordPress and all this stuff,
Yeah.
because if I could do teeth, I could definitely, I mean, I thought I could do a website. And yeah, Brian, my husband, finally said, you need to delegate this. And then Mike, we were already recording, and Michael said, like, hey, I know this up and coming marketing agency. They do brilliant work, and let me just introduce you. And the rest is history. Your team flew out. You
Yeah.
spent how many days? Was it like 2 days?
Yeah. I think it was probably, yeah, 2 days.
2 days. You brought at the time, I think you brought three other people with you,
Yes.
Caroline. Um, and man, we filmed in downtown Folsom. We filmed all over my office and around my office. But I kid you not, I have, I mean, this whole area is super saturated.
Yeah.
And when we ask patients, when we ask patients, like, hey, where did you find us? It's always the same. Like, well, I looked at your reviews, which were amazing, and I looked at Yelp and Google, but it wasn't until I landed on your website that I really felt like this was the place that I wanted to be. And can you talk about what branding looks like from your perspective, because there's a whole system, and walk us through like the first phone call and the brand packet that we get mailed.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was funny. I was thinking back to like when we met and got introduced, and you're right. It was through Michael. I remember the very first time we talked. It was actually another house other than this because we built this 4 years ago. But I was out front. There was like a park out front, and because you're West Coast, it was later. I was already home with the kids. I think it was like dinner
Mhm.
was starting, and I saw you come up, and I was like, I got to take this. And I stepped outside, and part of the conversation, I remember you said something along the lines of like California is one of the most saturated, I mean, the most saturated state in the country when it comes to dentists per capita. And you're in Folsom was no different. And you said something along the lines of like, am I crazy for doing this? And I kind of said back to you, like, hey, if you're going to build the same old practice that's in that town that everybody else has done, then you're going to have trouble competing. But if you can build something different, you can compete and you can win. And then you went silent on me for like 2 months, and I thought we lost you. And that might have been when you started like, let me just try and build it on my own. And then I remember you came back, because I remember my phone, your caller ID, and I was like, oh, it's Ashley. I was like, hold on, hold on. And you were like, hey, can we still do this? Are you guys
Yeah,
still good? And I'm like, yeah, man, let's make it happen. So,
yeah.
Actually, I think probably when I look at startups from a marketing perspective, I think the biggest mistake I see is not developing the brand the way it needs to be. And some of it I get because it's like you've got this business, you're trying to open the doors, like construction's happening, you've got a time frame, there's all these expenses, like you've got student debt, that is like kicking in. You've got like now you've got whether you're doing a startup, or buying something and buying tech and all the things, and now you're sitting here at night and you're probably like $1 million in debt and just trying to figure it out, and there's the stress with it. And so a couple things is like you're looking for places to cut money, and you're looking for ways you can do things yourself. But a lot of that for me is like it's short-sighted. Like if you were sitting here right now, 4 years, you guys are coming up on, is it
On
4?
5.
On 5 this October, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So if I would like, if you could have looked ahead to 5-year-old practice and said, hey, let's like, knowing that you're going to be here, somebody was like, hey, you're going to be a multi-million-dollar company in 5 years, you would probably stop and take the branding like more seriously. But
Mhm.
sometimes I don't know that we've got that like vision, and it's just like, and we just got to start, and we just got to get patients in the door, and that's all that matters. And I get that, but it's like those practices that have stopped and went, hey, okay, so in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5, we're going to be a multi-million-dollar company here. Investing, even if it's 20, 30, 50 grand, 60 grand in the branding and marketing initially is not a big deal. And a lot of times that even sets the foundation for how the practice can grow. So it's like visionary branding, right? It's like looking ahead and seeing, like, imagine where you're going to be in 5 years. Now let's back up and create that brand that you want at that point. Like, how do you want to be known 5 years from now?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think we're so concerned about just getting the doors open and trying to get it as cheaply done, because I mean, the fear involved with, like you said, all that debt and
Yeah.
not having patients to serve, it's daunting. So what I mean, obviously it's a leap of faith, and that's why you have to choose your company that you work with wisely. Can you walk us through why Studio 88? Like what makes your company different from the thousands of other companies in this space?
Yeah. I think, and just kind of to give a different type of answer here, I think it's probably the way we built it early on. It was me and my business partner, Joe, and a couple others of us, our lead designer, his name's Josh Ratcliffe, who designed your site. And he, it's funny because a lot of people will look at him, and he's kind of like, skinny, kind of Caucasian dude and bald head. And we kind of call him our resident redneck. But yet when something like a lot of people, they trip out because like when something that elegant comes out of him, people are like, what? Like, where did that come from? But like I've known him for, 25 years now. We've been really good friends. And I knew, so it was like the three of us got together and there was this conversation, and it kind of went like, hey, we could kind of do anything. Like, do we want to stay in dental? Do we want to do this? This was probably within the first year of us launching. And basically the conversation was, if we have to take creativity and dumb it down for dentistry, we're out. But if we can take dentistry and elevate it creatively, then we're in. Like,
Mhm.
let's try it and let's see what happens. Because at the time, like this was 8 years ago. I mean, think about what websites and marketing looked like 8 years ago. It was trash. I mean, and a lot of it still is, just templated mailers and websites and the same stock photo. Like you'd see it everywhere across the country. And it was doing the profession a disservice. And so our kind of moment of like coming to whatever, I don't know what to say, but like our moment of like, hey, is this going to be real, was like, if we can do really great work and dentistry accepts that, like, let's give it a shot. But all of us, out of integrity for like our personal creativity, weren't going to lower it just to push a product, to build a business and make money, because I think that was like what everybody else was doing.
Right.
So we started, we're like, hey, we're branders, man. We're like, we think about things differently. And it's brand based marketing, which, Ashley, I think we forget sometimes, like the biggest companies in the world are brands.
Mhm.
It's Apple, it's Amazon, it's Tesla, it's these companies that have invested in their branding, Coke. Um, so, I think dentistry is starting to come around to that. And I love it because we're in the right position to help it.
Will you explain the differences between marketing and branding?
Yeah. And you could probably ask 10 different marketers and you're
Yeah.
going to get 10 different answers on this, you know? And so branding for me, marketing is like, I think the umbrella conversation of marketing is, I say it like it's magnifying your message. Okay. So it's like, what's the message? Let's get it out there. So it's a lot of things. I think marketing is even like the scrubs you're wearing, the
Hmm.
landscaping, you know, the parking situation. Like it's all those things. Branding is those intentional pieces that help people tell the story to themselves about your practice. So, in a real particular, like, or specific sense, it's your logo. You know,
Hmm.
that the point of a logo is to start a conversation. If you've got 2 seconds with somebody, the logo is the thing that starts the conversation. A tagline can be part of the branding, you know, that you developed. It lives at the top of the website, on any marketing collateral you produce. So that's almost like the narrative. Like the logo catches their attention. Is like, oh, this is like high end. This is Tiffany's. This is like really, you know, elegant looking. The tagline then starts the narrative. But it's like, you know, this year we bought, our conference team, we bought these black and white Nike Dunks
Hmm.
shoes, and we wear those at conferences, and we get tons of comment. They're like, oh my gosh, you guys have matching shoes. But like, that's branding, right? Like is bringing our style into it. It's like starting a conversation. People see us, they're like, dude, you guys, it's not like a uniform, but you guys all coordinate, and that's cool. So it's kind of all those things.
You guys are always the most stylish group at any conference. I swear. Like you guys have nailed it. No, I loved like as soon as Michael told me to look you up, I went on the website on your website on Studio 88's website, and it was just so different from every other dental website that I was already looking into.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if they are doing something differently already, then I am already so intrigued because I didn't want a typical dental website. In fact, like my whole brand is I am my tag well, I have a tagline which is dentistry differently, but my whole business plan was based um on food. It sounds
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was based on food, and my signature on my email, if I ever email you, it's your friendly foodie
Yeah.
dentist.
Yeah.
And it's because those are the things that bring people together. Those experiences that we share over glasses of wine and meals, that is what I wanted in an atmosphere for a dental office.
Yeah.
And so when I got that brand packet in the mail, I mean it's a no joke pamphlet. It was multiple pages of me writing down the vision, writing down what feelings I wanted you to feel when you logged onto my website. And I sent that in thinking, okay, well, let's even see what they come up with. And the day that I got the email that said, hey, here is the preview, take a look. If you love it, then we're gonna go live. I kid you not. I opened it up. I had a patient in the chair. Sorry, patient, for making you wait. I had a patient in the chair, and I just started like tearing up because you guys totally you listened, and that was so important. You actually listened to what I wanted, and it didn't. So if you are curious as to what I'm talking about, my well, it's kind of transitioned since the very first version of it because team members have come and gone,
Yeah.
and it's going to get a refresher too. You guys are making another trip out like a couple days before the actual Napa event. They're going to do it all over again and do some custom photography and videography. So
Yeah, I mean,
um,
we're gonna capture some stuff before the making of, and just kind of refresh for, you know, like get the current team up there and all that. But I think you and I talked briefly. Our team is 100% on board for first quarter next year of coming back out, and I think 5 years is long enough. Like, let's rebuild the whole thing.
mhm.
Um, and I know our team can push it. Like we love that site so much. It's tempting to be like, just don't touch it. Like it's awesome. But I know we can push our team to just even come back with something that's amazing. And I love this conversation because I think what's different with you and where I would kind of push startups from the branding perspective is like intuitively and kind of observationally, you looked out and was like, it was almost just a, we're dentists. People are going to assume we do dentistry. So like, we don't need to talk about that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about food. Let's talk about wine. Um, in fact, a little known secret, your first name wasn't even Smile and Co. It was Smile Bar,
Mhm.
right? I mean, because you wanted to go the whole, like incorporate the wine bar and draft
Yeah.
beer and food and all of that into it. And when our first conversation, that was the name, but then I think it was legally it was tied up, and so you went a different direction.
I
But
can't
I
believe
think
you
that's
remembered that. That was
oh yeah, yeah, because I want to say your Facebook, like you had a Facebook page then, and it was Smile Bar, I think,
it
right?
was. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But I love that you've done that. And really when I see the successful practices of startups, they're the ones that are doing that. Like somebody, Brian Bollywas with
Mhm.
450 Dental Aesthetic Group, we did his site about 6 months ago, and it was the same conversation was, I don't want the normal dental site. He's like, I want to talk about our favorite sushi restaurants. I want to talk about like our favorite San Francisco experiences. Like I want it to be lifestyle, right? Like people, they know we do dentistry, but they connect with us as humans. And they're like, wow, you're in the Bay Area. Like what's good? What restaurants? What do you guys do for fun? And like, let's talk about that stuff. And so it's like intuitively, observationally seeing those things going like, that's how people connect. That's what brings people together. How can I incorporate that into a dental practice? That's all branding and that's all things that you've done very naturally.
Oh, thank you. Maybe it's a Filipino thing to always just want to talk about food.
Maybe.
Um, so just switching gears, Josh, how important is SEO? How important is getting on that first page of Google? And is that possible if you are just starting out? Like, because a lot of these conversations are, I'm spending thousands of dollars a month trying to get visibility. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is definitely the most divisive topic in dental marketing for sure. And there are agencies on one side and agencies on the other side for 100%. And some do one side really well, some do the other side really well. And it's it depends on what your goals are. Some people coming out of the gate, it's like I need to be number one on Google, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, go for it. I think what's important to define right now though is how SEO has changed. Like in your area, probably, I don't know if you've looked at your web analytics lately. I could jump into them here, but probably 75% of people on your website are viewing it through a mobile device, a phone, a tablet. So SEO is different there. It's local searches, it's Google Maps, it's reviews play a role in that. So when we're talking about traditional SEO, of somebody being like, I need to be, number one on Google, I'm like, okay, so that's for like organic desktop search, right? Which, maybe 20% of your area, maybe 30%. But so some of that's changed. And Google's done that on purpose. They absolutely have because they're kind of tired of this whole hacking SEO thing. So
Mhm.
Google on purpose has tried to go, how can we create organic, natural results? And so that's where reviews have come in local listings. So I think that's important to define. Like you may think SEO is your end game, but that may only be affecting 20% of the traffic that's getting to your site. So I think it's important to know like there's other ways. And like you said earlier, people will land on your site. What's the experience you want them to have? Would you rather convert 80% of 500 visitors to the site, or would you rather convert 15% of 2,000 visitors to the site because you've got amazing SEO? And you've probably had this experience too, where it's like somebody sees your site, they come in, and there's a higher level of trust. There's a sense of like, you can do this for me. I know you're the right dentist. And so then when you have to sit down case, present treatment, and it could be 15, 20, 25,000. There's this like level of, yep, like I knew it was going to be a lot, but I knew you were the right one. So like how much is that worth? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And so sometimes we can be chasing one thing because we think all we need is butts in the chair. And I'm like, but is that really what you want? And is
Mm-hmm.
that really the business you're building for the next 5 years? Because like Studio 88, we're not. We've
Mm-hmm.
never invested a penny into SEO. If you look up dental marketing agencies, we're not on the first page. I think we might be on page 3, but we're one of the fastest growing agencies in the country. So like I'm living what I'm like preaching, so to speak. And it's not that it may never play a role in our strategy, but right now it's just getting clicks was not necessarily our goal. It was finding the right clients, fitting the right clients with us, and doing really good work. And so if that's your goals with dentistry, I would say like SEO may or may not be your end game.
Right. No, I love that. I've never paid for SEO. Actually, I haven't paid for marketing. So this
Yeah.
is all brand new to me. Like it's our yeah. It well, what do you say to the docs who are not so comfortable in front of the camera? So so I know for us, uh, we do a lot of social media. That's how we grew. We do a lot of storying. We invite our patients to story with us. But I know that my personality is even different from the other doctors in my own practice. Like are you still thinking that video is the best way at highlighting those practices, or really having the doctors like, no, your strong suit is not in front of the camera. Let's just
Right.
focus on other avenues for you.
Right. So first off, when you say you've never invested in marketing or spent money on it, like I understand what you're saying. It's also not entirely true because you have invested time and energy into social media. You've invested
Mm,
time and energy into branding.
into
Like
branding. Yeah.
yeah, so like you knew some of your strengths. Like you're going to create something that's really different. You're going to do it in a very high-end, visually appealing way. You're going to leverage your personality, your charisma on social media, and that was going to be the majority of your marketing strategy. And I, and I think with you, like getting to know you, I was like, yeah, I think that's brilliant. Like honestly, that may be all you need, and it really has been. So I think, yeah, knowing, okay, like what are we good at? Like early on for us, it was, well, my former boss once told me when Facebook came out and I was trying to use that for the previous company I worked for, he was almost like, I'll let you do that, but you can't, practices can't grow. You can't grow a business off of social media. Like, he's one of those older guys that just kind of dismissed it. And so when I started this, there was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, I'll show you, like, we can do this. And so I really leveraged my social media, but also like our talent, our creatives, like, hey, here's what we're putting out there. Like, right. Like, here's this website, here's this photography, like, look, it's different. So we've never really spent a lot on traditional marketing either. It's just been that brand play, that social media play. Um, Video's super powerful. Like we all know that, but just the other day I was on Instagram and it was a local doctor here in New Albany and I saw him and he was like, he's never on social media, but all of a sudden a video of him shows up and he's in a chair and he's like, today I want to talk to you about veneers, and just kind of starts going. And I'm like, bro, you should not, I don't know that you should be doing this. Or like we just need to loosen you up, right? Like we need a different context. We don't need the big overstuffed chair. Like we need you.
Yeah.
We just need to make the whole thing more casual and approachable. So you do have some of that. And I think it's fine. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong, but it's knowing if you're uncomfortable with video, maybe there's somebody else that is. Maybe your office manager is fantastic, and let them be the front man. Let them be the face. Maybe you go more photography. So I think it's just kind of figuring some of that out. But it's video is super important for sure.
Yeah. I love that you brought up casual and comfortable, because I think that what set our office apart in the beginning was we were showing a lot of the day-to-day behind the scenes that you wouldn't typically see. And this was back, I I mean, it the idea of being professional in a doctor's setting it's obviously changed a lot. There's a lot more doctors on TikTok these days and all of that. Well, when we were first starting out, it was still very much like, let's be super buttoned up, let's wear white coats. So it was really nice just to break out of that shell, because I mean, we listen to old school hip hop most days in the office.
Yeah.
And I think the bottom line is building a practice that suits your own personality. Like if you are super out there, if you're like quirky, I mean, highlight that. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to see quirky doctors. And if it's not something that is natural to you, I think trying to fit into that mold is a disservice. And that's when the branding and the marketing are not going to coincide.
Yeah. Like years ago, I had this practice. It was actually up in the Cleveland area, and we never worked with him, but I just did like an initial kind of just meet and greet, and we were having this conversation along the lines of he was the dentist for the DA's office, and so I was like, that's super cool. I was like, we need to like use that, because so I mean, he was really into like all the forensics and all that stuff, and so I was like, man, that's amazing. Like, let's tell some of that story. And he's like, what? That I have my hands in dead people's mouths? And I'm like, I wasn't thinking about it like that. I'm thinking like CSI and
Yeah,
forensics and evidence, and what if you really like leaned into that? Like your patients would trip out on some of that stuff, like the whole like crime scene investigation and the work you're doing with the DA and all that. Like, so I'm trying to, spin a story, but it's stuff like that, right? Like it doesn't have to look like Tiffany and Co. It doesn't have to look like whatever you think. You see somebody and you're like, because I get this all the time. People are like, hey, I saw Ashley Sy, I saw Smile and Co. I just want you to know I'm not her. I'm like, I know. Like, I know you're not. Like, I'm not going to try to make you her. We're not going to like try to build. It's not that site works because of the site. That site works because of Ashley, because of like the brand, because of the soul of Smile and Co. So like, what is your soul? Like let's tell that. And as a practice we work with in New York, in Greenwich Village, they're called Dental House, and it's two female best friends that started a practice together. But when I was on the phone with them, they were telling me, they're like, dude, like we just love the vibe of Greenwich Village. It's like it's still like
mm,
a community, but we're in like Manhattan, and we love the vibe of like the town and the people and all the stuff. And they've got a portrait of Biggie, like Big, the notorious Big, in their
yeah,
practice. And so when you walk in, you hear like 80s hip hop and rap, and so when people talk about like so a lot of times I'm like, what's your vibe? Like
right.
what is that energy? What's giving you energy? Is it forensics, with the DA's office, or
Yeah,
is it the notorious Big? Like
yeah,
it doesn't matter, but let's figure that out and let's start leaning into it, because that's what people connect to, is energy. And a lot of times we're just like, let's just open the doors and get butts in the chair. I'm like, well, we can run a business like that. You can. It's just not always the best way to do it. And in the end, you may not find as much fulfillment from it.
oh, amen to that. Like when we first opened, I was in network with quite a few insurances, and I mean, we were full, we grew very fast, but it wasn't the type of dentistry that I want to do. Like
Yeah.
it's not the soul, like the soul filling dentistry. And so our office is transitioning out of network with a lot of the insurance companies now, which I'm so excited for. It's also terrifying. It's
Yeah.
terrifying not having that steady stream of patients who literally are choosing you. Well, one, you have good reviews, but also you're a network. And I love the fact that now we're okay with letting patients go. In fact, after the after the pandemic and we reopened our doors, I don't know if it was just our office, but the patients, I think they forgot how to act in a civilized community anymore. Like there were so many like high maintenance demands, no
Yeah.
boundaries, and we are we're officially out of network with Delta in September.
Okay.
And at first I thought like, well, that's that's going to really hurt our bottom line. But now I think it's freedom. Like, and now we can actually create and target those avatars and really hone in on the type of demographic that will that we can do the dentistry that we want to do on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's the biggest trend I've seen in dentistry since COVID is practices stepping away from either all insurances or starting to cut them back. I mean, I think by far it's the biggest trend I've seen. And I think what's interesting is a lot of these practices, when I go in and I do some like consulting with some of our practices as well. And so when I talk to them, I'm like, hey, we can probably, okay, so like we're gonna cut Delta. You could probably like, let's figure out what that percentage is that you can lose and we're still okay, right? Because like if you retain a certain amount, but they're paying your full fee, then that's actually a better deal. So like there's a certain amount we can actually lose and we're still fine. And most of them come out, you know, somewhere between like, hey, we could probably lose 25 to 40% of those patients and still make the same income, just less patients.
Hmm.
And most of them typically lose between like 6 to 8% at the most. Like it's way less than what they even ever would have thought. And they're thinking like, man, it might be 20 to 30%. So like especially practice like yours where they've been ingrained in that and they've had that experience, like they may actually go somewhere for one visit and then be like, oh no, like I'm coming back. And so it's as we grow, and this is something nobody's really talking about because everything is just grow, 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 grow. But
Hmm.
like this year for us, we actually capped our new clients. Like we take 8 new clients a month, and that is it. And I went to our because we've just been growing fast. And what I don't want to become, I watch every single other dental company. They start growing, they get momentum, and all of a sudden now you got customer service issues. Now the product is suffering. Now people are talking about you online. There's
Hmm.
all this like, and it's just like it's too much, it's too fast. And we decided we're not going to do that. We don't want to do that. And so at the beginning of the year, I went to like our creative team and said, hey, I'm thinking we could between photography, video, design, development, writing, we can do 8 clients a month. That's 96 for the year, which is probably our best year ever. And are we good? And the whole creative team was like, absolutely, we can do that. It capped it. So they know they're not going to get this like month where it's like 14 new clients. And they're like, ah, and now we're just shipping stuff. Like, just give them a website because we need to. It's been late. And we're
Hmm.
not in that. I'm protecting our team. And so, you know, we're on sales calls and I'm like, hey, here's the deal is it's July 15th and we're full. So love to work with you, but it's going to be August 1st, like before you
Hmm.
hear from our team.
Right.
And so I think it's like, how do you want to grow, right? Like those are the questions. Like once you start growing, now like you're in this phase, it's like, how do we want to grow? What do we want the next 5 years to look like?
Absolutely. Yes. Ugh, I love that you knew your vision from the beginning. Like you knew that you are a boutique marketing agency and you want to have high touch points with your clients and you're fine with capping your growth. Like I was all over the map when we opened. And now I have this big amazing team and now I'm like, okay, now what is this transition going to look like once we get out of network with insurances, once our patient flow slows down? Like that is something that, I mean, that keeps me up at night. Like I don't, but that's another topic for another day. Probably in Napa, like all the things that
Yeah.
keep us up at
But
night.
but you know, some of that is like we all have this in us, and I deal with it too. This it's like a scarcity like mentality. It's like we tend towards like this like poverty type mentality of like you know what happens when our new patients take a hit, what happens, you know, like what happens when we can only say no, when we can only say yes to 8 clients and some other marketing agency starts taking all the other ones. Like you
Right.
start playing out this worst case scenario. And the truth is like the world is abundant, you know,
Mhm.
and you're growing your business with that same mentality. And sometimes that's probably like what you're experiencing is like there are times where you're like, dude, life is abundant and I just need to make the decisions that are right for me and my
Mhm.
team and where I see this long term and know that I'm going to be okay versus then the next moment you're just like, oh, but is that the right thing? And
Right.
what if, you know, we start freaking out. And I
Right.
think some of it is like looking down the road, like 3 years from now, you're probably going to look back and be like, that was the best decision we ever made. Like, I wish I would have done it sooner, you know? And so it's like trusting yourself and like hey, I'll free up. Like if we can create excess capacity, it will fill in with more of the good things. But sometimes we get scared when we're like, we have to say no, like, no, can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Ah, so true. What is, I mean, and you guys, if you're watching, feel free to post your questions. That's why my eyes are looking at two different screens. I want to be able to read your questions off. Um, what what is a or do you have a checklist that you would recommend to a doctor starting out, like the do's and don'ts, or what to look for when interviewing a potential marketing agency? Like, I feel like there are so many things, like um, buying followers these days and all of that. Like,
Yeah.
is there a how-to guide that can help position our startup docs in a just on a leg up?
Yeah. I think we've tried to create that a little bit in our that brand creator workbook that you referred to earlier. It's kind of there's some initial homework with us in the first like 30 days. There's a and it's even developed from further from where we worked with you, but there's an aesthetic style guide that they walk through online. It's almost like Pinterest boards and fonts and colors, and you kind of just start selecting, and so we get a visual direction for where you go. But the brand creator for us is kind of making people stop to think through like the vision and what are you seeing and what's important to you, your values, your voice, the soul of the practice, like what gives you energy. It's like those things we're asking. um, and I think I say that because for me, the ones the as we're 8 years into this, the practices that come out of our process the best are those that have done their homework and have spent time thinking about like this is what I see, this is what I want to build. When they do that, we're like, got it. Now we're like one lane highway, like let's go, let's build it. The ones, if I'm being really honest, the ones that maybe we get to the end and it's a sub optimal experience is the ones where it's like they probably see some of the stuff we do and they're like, I want that. But there's very little input from them, right? Like, oh, I don't have time to do the brand creator. It's like, well, I mean, like, what's like an hour? Is that 45 minutes for me to sit down and do that? I'm like, yeah, but it's worth, like, if you put that into it, if you can stop and think through that, like, we're literally talking about building stuff for the next 10, 20 years. So, like, sometimes in the beginning, we get antsy. We have a hard time being patient, like sitting down and thinking through that stuff. But if we're thinking about like this is shaping the next 10, 20 years of not just a website, but like your business and your
Right.
direction, then if you can like kind of give us some of that, now we've got the resources. Right now it's like our team's like, oh, this is gold, and our team will comment behind the scenes on our practice, our creative management application, like, did you see this brand creator, this is amazing, and the writer's like, oh, I'm going to run with this thing right here, and then we get some where it's like crickets, still got nothing. So
So from start to finish, can you walk us through how many people actually are involved from the first phone call to when the actual website is produced by your company?
yeah. Gosh, I mean, I think I counted this one time. I think it was 7 or 8 people, but I mean, you're going to talk to either me or Mike on the front end. You're going to get introduced to your account manager. You're going to meet a photographer, a videographer. There's going to be a writer involved, a designer involved, a developer involved, our art director involved. Um, yeah, so that's 9. And if we even count like Caroline oversees all of our account managers. So I mean, she's even at a high level involved there. So I mean, it's about, yeah, 9 to 10 people touching a website project for us from start to end.
So I mean, it's a big deal. And you guys put a lot of love and effort into every website. Every website, from my friends who have become friends because of this community. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, every website just keeps getting better and better. So I
No,
just,
we do. Like, I love that you said that because I mean, I told my team this. It was just a couple months ago, but there was a week. I think we had like 2 or 3 sites that went live, And I pulled him up on a Monday morning and I was like, guys, I'm not BSing you. I think we're doing our best work right now in 2022. And like we just launched Brian Baliwas's site 450, and it's just way different. It's one of my favorite sites because I'm actually pretty minimal by nature, and his site is 100% like that. And so I love that, and that's making me want to come back. Like I look at yours, I'm like, I like it. We need a 2023 version next year. So
Yeah,
just something that's gonna like freak people out. It's gonna be so good.
I'm
So
ready. Let's do it.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do it. Do you have any other topics you want to talk about, Josh?
We just got a dog. I just got Invisalign. We just came back from vacation.
Nice.
So all the things are happening here. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I cannot wait to hear your presentation at the retreat. I've heard only amazing things about it. So I'm excited, and I hope you guys reach out to Josh and everyone at Studio 88. They do a lot of hand holding. They are so professional, and they really do listen to the brand that you're trying to create. And that's why I love you guys. And yeah. And check out smilingcompany.com if you want to see my website. They've done so many of the websites for our startup docs. And oh, one other question I wanted to ask you. What is a healthy marketing budget per month for a startup?
That's a super good question. And I would say the right answer is it depends on what you're trying to do. We and this is why I think choosing your agency and an agency that's going to get to know you and what you're trying to accomplish is super important, because like on one end, like there's you, there's kind of like us, where it was a really strong brand social media play, and like great website, great visuals, great social media, and that was all you needed. And all that stuff, fortunately, is pretty low cost, but it's like high time investment, right? Like there's a lot of people actually that just don't have the time that you put into social media. Like they're just like, I can't do it, you know? And so
Mhm.
sometimes we're like, yeah, we didn't spend any money, but I'm like, yeah, but you're like 10 to 12 hours a week in social. So
Mhm.
I don't know what your hourly rate is, but that's a lot. That's a lot of value there for sure. So there's that side of it. We just started working. Well, I mean, we have a new startup, but it's his third startup here in the Central Ohio area. He spends 38,000 a month on Google and Facebook, and he goes from 0 to 3 million in his first year, and he's done that now 3 times. So it's somewhere between 0 and probably 38,000 a month. If that's helpful. But that's his. But he's building 18 offices and hiring 4 docs like right from the start, and is like, I need 150 new patients month one. So when people go, so some of that is like when people say Google ads don't work, I'm like, let me put you on the phone with this guy, because he's
Yeah.
spending 38,000 a month in
Yeah.
Central Ohio and went from 0 to 3 million. But that was his vision, right? Like that's what he's building: big practices. Zero, it has to go to 0 to 3 million, and so he can do it. So the budget question sometimes is like when people ask that, I'm trying to figure out like what mental blocks and hangups do you have? Because some
Mhm.
people it's like 1,000 a month is crazy, 1,500 a month is crazy. And then I see some people, yeah, like corporate groups, DSOs, like what do you think they're spending in a year? I mean, it's close to 6 figures for most of them going into an area doing a startup.
Mhm.
So you've got like DSOs, and the really smart business owners know if you can do the right investment, you can leverage that. You can grow really quick. But then some people get freaked out at, $1,000 a month. So, you know, so if I'm on with somebody like you, I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, I think like, do you use social media? Like, do you love that? I'm like, hey, I think good branding, good website, good visuals, good video, good social, you're probably fine. Like let's at least start that way and see how it goes. If we need to, we can put a more aggressive Google or Facebook campaign in place,
Mhm.
for 1,000, 1,500 a month, something like that. But it may not be necessary. But then we can scale it up as much as we need. because in the end, like Facebook and Google ads, it's just a formula. You put 1,500 bucks in, you get 10 new patients a month. Now you got a formula, right? Now you can put 3,000 in a month and get 20. So that's what this other guy did. Is he's like, I need X amount, so it's probably going to take about $38,000. So if I spend 38, I get this amount of new patients, which grows the practice to this amount. So he just reverse engineered it all based on formulas, and it's super smart way to think about it.
Awesome. Such a good answer. And yes, it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. I love that. Can you invite that guy to Napa? I really want to pick his brain.
Oh, I should. Yeah, you know what? I'll text him when we get off here and tell him to
Okay.
think about it, because
No, I'm
he would
totally
be a fun one.
serious. I'm
Yeah,
totally I really want to pick his brain. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He'd be fun to talk to for sure. At that, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I don't think we have any other questions. And you guys know Josh Scott and Joanna Scott are a big part of this community. Reach out to them if you have any questions. They are the sweetest people, super professional. And I cannot wait to see you guys in Napa. And thanks for being a part of our community. You guys, I just love you guys the best. You guys are amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad our paths crossed years ago and you finally called me back.
I
Because
was
even just
playing hard
getting,
to get.
yeah, I know. But gosh, just even getting to know you and Brian has been so much fun. Definitely one of the highlights of our, you know, I mean, I think in the beginning of this, like you're starting a business and you're like, you just got to pay bills
Yeah.
and pay team members and all that. But, you know, 8 years into this, I'm like, man, Joanna and I have made some amazing friends. And it's
Yeah.
just been so like, yeah, just we're so grateful for that. It's been so fulfilling, you know, to, I think it was last November. What was when we were at Brian's practice, but we came up to
Right.
Napa and it was
Yeah.
like, hey, do you want to come up and meet
Yeah.
us? And we just had a quick dinner. And it's like to be able to do that around the country with people
Yeah.
is so cool. So,
It's like chicken soup for the soul. It really is. It really.
yes.
And I
Yeah.
can't wait for you and Brian to talk about all the wines in Napa. I'm sure you're going to have your level 3 certification by then.
Yeah.
And good luck downing all of those 100 bottles of wine.
I know. I know. I usually just I open them, drink, then then I take them into the office, and the team loves it because they're like, "Oh my, it's free wine. It's open, but it's free. Just take it." So,
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Always a pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. We sincerely do hope that you join us in Napa. We can have all the wine together and talk about life because it really is about the relationships, right? We're not doing this on our own. And yeah, thank you guys. And we'll be back next week with another amazing guest. So stay tuned.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.